Hello and welcome, fellow bookworms and film fans. Welcome to this week's episode of The Contented Narrative, where we will be looking at The Hunger Games, written by Susan Collins and published in 2008. It was then adapted to screen in 2012. Now, I'll be looking at three things. I'll be looking at how good is the film, how good is the book, and of course, what does the plot take from the book. So, the film. Now, first things first, this first instalment of the 4-film franchise is absolutely a brilliant introduction to the Hunger Games and to its characters and to its feeling as a world, basically. The characters are easy to love and they're easy to hate as well. They've also got, Katniss is given this strong persona, and she's still, even though when she's in the game she only really kills 2 people, one by accident and one as a reflex because Rue dies, but she's determined not to take part in these games, but she's also determined to survive, which is really good. Now, as Michael keeps saying to me, The Hunger Games, the film, is more of a tamer version of Battle Royale in regards to the kills and the bloodiness and the gore, because we get a little bit of bloodiness and gore, but it's not really what the film's about, which is what I'm kind of glad about, because blood and gore and guts kind of gets a little old after a while. But the vision is actually brilliantly portrayed. There's so many scenes that just hit you as well, like when Primrose Everdeen gets called and Katniss volunteers for her, your heart kind of goes, oh, can't believe she's doing it. And then again, when you've got like Peter, who then turns around and says that he's always had something for Katniss, and you turn around again and go, oh, that's so adorable. And then you've got Rue's death as well, which is just heartbreaking in itself. You know, a little 12-year-old girl getting killed by a spear is just, I mean, if it doesn't make you cry, what are you doing with your life? And honestly, it is a moving film that deals with the starts of rebellions and dictators. And you can see how, even though Katniss is just wanting to get through and get by and survive, she's slowly starting a rebellion, which she isn't even aware of. And at the end of the film, it's kind of like she's warned that she has to keep this up. But she was just like, I just wanted to survive. I just wanted to bring me and Peter home. Peter. So obviously, I'm assuming that, you know, the majority of people probably will have seen Hunger Games by now. I would definitely recommend giving it a watch. It's a great film, and honestly, it gets a 7 out of 10 for me. It is a brilliant film. Now, the book. Now, this book is a really intriguing young adult novel, and it is so well written. Like, Susan Collins is an absolutely fantastic writer there. You honestly feel for each of the characters, and even though in the book, Katniss comes across more standoffish, and at the beginning, her and Peter are more sort of like hated towards each other, and they don't and then they sort of grow towards each other in the end. And it's, even though you've got all of that, you still love the characters, and even though you know that all of them, like all but one of them, are going to die going into the ring, you still want, you're just like, oh, can they not just, can that person just not survive? And as I said before, in the film, my heart breaks when Rue dies in the book as well. And honestly, the book ends with such a good conclusion, so that if you didn't want to necessarily read the rest of the trilogy, you don't necessarily have to. But it also leaves enough where you want more. Because what I hate is when you're reading a series and the first book is good, but it doesn't really grab you. But then it leaves such a big cliffhanger that you have to read the next one, and you're just sat there going, but why? And then you're never sated. Whereas this book, you can just read this book. You can just read the first one. You don't have to read the second two. But it leaves enough questions and everything with, like, she has to keep it on and she has to do this. And you're sat there going, oh, will she? Won't they? You know, do they love each other? Blah, blah, blah. So honestly, I think that's so brilliantly done. And for that, that's why I've got all 3 of them. And that's why I will be, over the course of this channel, reviewing all 3 of them. And also, it is good to read for someone who looks out for herself, and she's surly and she's hard to like, but she does everything in the best possible way, and it is sweet. And I do feel, I root for her and I feel sorry for her as well when she's just trying it at the beginning of the games, when she just sort of sat to one side because she's just trying to basically hope that everyone kills themselves out, and she knows she can hunt and she knows that she can survive, and then she gets pushed back into it, and she's trying her hardest not to. And I love reading this book, and I've read this book several times, and I'll probably read it several times more. So this book gets an 8 out of 10 for me. Now we're looking at the plot. Now I must admit, the plot is very similar, very similar. So both in the film and the book start in exactly the same way. It's Reaping Day. So the Hunger Games, basically, there's the capital, Panem, the capital, and then there's 13 districts. Now, District 13 is complete rubble, apparently. It's like a nuclear waste site. This is what we've been told in the book. And then you've got districts 1 to 12. Now, each year, two tributes from each district will be picked. One boy, one girl between the ages of 12 and 18. And they will be picked to partake in the Hunger Games. 24 kids go in, one kid comes out as a victor. So Reaping Day is basically where someone comes from the capital and picks out a name from the boys and from the girls. So then that's what it is. So Katniss and Gale are out poaching in the woods outside of District 12. They discuss running off, and you can see that they work quite well as a team, and they know each other and everything. But then they realise it's unfeasible for them to run off because Katniss has Prim and her mum, and Gale has his family as well, and you can't look after everyone in the woods when apparently you've got this burnt out district just beyond it. So then they kind of go back, they get ready, and they go to the reaping. Now in the reaping, Prim, who is Katniss's sister, she gets picked. So Katniss realises that Prim doesn't stand a chance and Prim will die. So she basically volunteers as tribute, not thinking that she's going to survive, but just thinking that she saved Prim's life for a little bit longer. So she then volunteers as tribute. Now, one small difference is that in the book, Haymitch is on stage with them at this point, completely drunk as a skunk, falling off the stage, groping Effie, being horrible. But in the film, we don't see him till he gets on the train. So then we also get Peter Malark, who gets called as the boy tribute. Now, we do realise as well, we once learned that Peter actually saved Katniss's life by just throwing her some bread, because Katniss was starving, Prim was starving, the mum had disappeared off sort of like within herself because she'd lost her husband to a mine explosion. Katniss then gets this bread thrown by Peter, and it basically just reinvigorates her, and it's a really nice, beautiful thing, because then in the book, Katniss then realises that, she owes this guy, and she doesn't want to owe anyone going into the Hunger Games. But we get a little hint of possible emotions. So anyway, in both we get Gale, Prim and her mum saying goodbye to Katniss. However, in the book, we also get the mayor's daughter, who's the one who actually gives Katniss the little Mockingjay pin that's actually sort of like on the front of the book and, features throughout. Whereas in the film, she gets a little Mockingjay pin from the Hob, which is basically like the black market area of her district. And we also get Peter's dad, who gave her some cookies. So that's kind of sweet. This girl's supposedly going to have to kill your boy, but, Now, in the book, obviously, we always do get more description in the book. So in the book, we get a bit more description about Katniss's past, what she learns in school, how the districts were formed, how the Hunger Games started. In the film, it's kind of like a short little film that gets shown on the Reaping Day. Also in the book, Effie seems a bit more aloof and put out at first, and then she slowly comes to love Katniss and Peter, whereas in the film, it's almost straight away that she kind of like goes with them and quite likes them. So then they arrive at the capital. Just before that, you get in both as well, Katniss and Peter, who basically push Haymitch to do his job and to train the tributes and to look after them, because without Haymitch, they don't get sponsors, they can't survive in the games. So then they arrive at the capital and end up going through an intense scrub down, beauty treatments, like waxing the legs, sorting out the eyebrows, cleaning the nails, all of that. I could literally do with that, to be perfectly honest. As you can see, my fringe just got a bit long. My nails I'm having to do myself, which is why they're a bit chipped. Like, my eyebrows don't even get me started. So honestly, I could do with that bit of the beauty treatment. And then after that, you get Katniss meeting Cinna, who's the stylist. He seems quite down to earth for a capital person, and he ends up becoming friends with Katniss and designing these most gorgeous gowns for her. So then you get the opening ceremony with Katniss and Peter, and they make an entrance because Cinna decides to set them on fire. Good fire, like they don't, it's not possible to burn them, but they come in and they're on fire and they're holding hands, and it's a really good, strong entrance for these two. And it makes them stand out as well, and it makes them seem like they're a pair, like, they're with each other and they're memorable, which is what you want. So then you get a speech from President Snow, and then everyone exits. Then we follow the tributes as they're having a strategy meeting with Hamish, and then they head into training. And then, you get a couple of days of training where they figure out what they're good at, what they need to improve on. They get taught all sorts of survival skills. And then after a few days of training, they have to perform in front of the game makers. Now, when Katniss gets called forward, obviously she's District 12, so she's one of the last people to see, for the game makers to see. So she does some shooting, but she's being mostly ignored by the game makers, who are now obsessed with this pig that's been brought out. So she shoots the apple out of the pig's mouth, and she bows sarcastically and says, "Thank you for your consideration," and leaves. Now, obviously, at this point, she thinks she's buggered it. Hamish finds it absolutely hilarious. Effie's in, hysterics because she doesn't know, oh my God, like, this is going to hurt us. But actually, that gives her a score of 11 out of 12. And Peter gets a score of 8. So 11 out of 12 is the highest score of those tributes. Even the career tributes from districts like 1, 2, and 4, they don't get such a high score. So then the interviews go pretty much the same way in both. Katniss getting people to love her by, joking and being as real as she can and pretending that she's talking to Cinna. And then you've got Peter telling everyone that he has a crush on Katniss. Now, obviously, this upsets Katniss. But then they realise that actually this makes her a bit more desirable, because now all the guys are like, oh, star-crossed lovers and everything like that. So one difference is that in the film, Peter seems to really like Katniss from the get-go, a lot. But in the book, he seems to be more calculated about it at the beginning. I mean, you find out later that he has loved her for quite a while, but it is a lot more calculated with how he's telling her. And in fact, the final talk between Peter and Katniss the night before the Hunger Games seems more charged in the book, and it seems more, angry at each other. So now we're on the way to the arena, and Cinna is the final person that Katniss sees before she's put in the games. And now the Hunger Games have begun. Now, Katniss manages to grab her backpack and run into the woods. And on the first morning, 11 tributes are killed at the first bloodbath at the cornucopia. So then Katniss hides in a tree to sleep, and then sees a tribute light a fire. This tribute is then killed. Then Katniss finds out that Peter has aligned himself with the career tributes. Now, obviously, at this point in the book and the film, she's like, oh my God, what's going on? We find out later he was doing it to throw them off her trail, which was kind of cute. So anyway, Katniss is setting herself, as I said, in a good position to wait out the games, but the gamekeepers, however, want action. So they basically set off this large forest fire to get her back in the action. However, doing so, they're shooting fireballs and they actually catch her on the leg, which gives her a really nasty burn. So anyway, because she's got this really nasty burn, she's trying to sort of cool it down and fix herself. And then the career tributes spot her and basically chase her up this tree. So she's now stuck in this tree with the career tributes in a pack below her with Peter there. Now in the book, she sees Rue that night, who points out the Tracker-Jacker nest. Now Tracker-Jacker nest basically are modified wasps. They sting you, they cause hallucinations, and too many stings and you will die. So she spots this nest and she's trying to saw it to sort of drop it on the tributes. Now in the book, however, in the film, however, Rue points this out the next morning. Now in both, she gets this little pot of medicine from Hamish, who I'm assuming gets her some sponsors, and it helps soothe her burn so that she's actually going to survive the night, which is good. So she then drops the Tracker-Jacker nest on the pack of tributes below. Now in the book, this kills 2 tributes. In the film, it only kills 1. Now, in both, however, Katniss does retrieve the bow and arrow from one of the dead tributes. Peter sees her getting the bow and arrow and basically tells her to run, and by doing so is caught by Cato, who's the tribute, a big tribute from District 2, I think. And he's basically the main protagonist, as it were. who then stabs Peter, but we don't know about that until a little bit later on. So anyway, in the book, she wakes up from hallucinations caused by the tracker jackers. Katniss heads off, she finds water, she finds food, she sorts herself out. She then forms alliance with Rue, and Rue then treats Katniss's tracker jacker stings. In the film, however, Katniss wakes up to Rue having helped her survive and healed her while she was sleeping. So anyway, in both, Rue and Katniss comes up with a plan to destroy the career tribute's stash of food. So Rue sets the fire to draw out the career tributes, and as Katniss is trying to figure out how to destroy the stash, she sees another tribute come in and steal some food, which confirms that there are mines around the food stash. So Katniss lets the apples loose, and they set off the explosion, which destroys the entire stash of food. So then she's sort of stuck there, and as she's sort of like about to run off, but then the career tributes come back, they kill the guard that was supposed to be looking after the stash of food, and he's gone. So Katniss feels a little bit responsible for that. So then Katniss goes looking for Rue, but then finds her in a net, hanging up, and then she's killed by a spear. So then Katniss kills the boy straight away with a bow and arrow. So this is the first kill that she actually does. Then she has a little ceremony. She buries Rue in a bed of flowers. It's so emotional. And she does that, which is sort of like a fine, like a look of defiance. Now, in the film, we get a little bit, a scene of District 11, who is where Rue is from, sort of uprising against this thing. Because obviously, you know, Rue's an adorable little 12-year-old. So at this point as well, we get the rule change that 2 people from the same district can win instead of having 1 victor. So at this point, Katniss goes, I need to find Peter. So she finds him, but he is badly hurt, and so she takes him away to a cave to be able to nurse him back to health. However, the wound on his leg is getting worse, so he needs medicine. So the gamekeepers announce that there will be things at the cornucopia for each remaining district, and it's something that they desperately need. So despite Peter not wanting her to go, Katniss basically waits until he's out cold, or injects him with sleeping potion in the book, and leaves so she can heal him fully. She runs to get the medicine and is accosted by another tribute. Now this girl brags about how she helped kill Rue, and now she's going to go kill Katniss. So then the other guy, Thresh from District 11, he hears this, and even though, you know, they were enemies or whatever, I mean, it's a 12-year-old girl, he kills this tribute, and he saves Katniss's life this once for Rue. Now you do, so then Katniss retrieves the medicine, runs off, and you get the feeling now there's starting to be a little bit of feelings between them, even though it's a lot of it is for show. There's also that feeling that they actually, you know, Katniss does feel something. So at this point in the book, they kill Thresh from District 11, whereas in the film he lasts until the second to last tribute, and then he's killed by the pack of weird mutant dog wolves. Now in the film, when they recover, so in the film at this point as well, when they're recovering, they then go off and hunt, and Peter's getting these berries, and then it turns out they're poisonous, and another tribute had tried these berries and died. Now this does also happen in the book, but as I said, this is, you know, in the book it's after Thresh is killed. So now it's only Cato, who's the final career tribute, Katniss and Peter. Now the final 3 end up on the roof of the cornucopia after being chased by the mutant dog things. After a brief fight, Cato is hit with an arrow and tumbles to his death among the mutants. So that then leaves Katniss and Peter. Now the game makers then revoke the 2-winner rule so that Katniss and Peter have to then kill one or another so one of them can survive. However, Katniss isn't going to let this go, so they both pretend to eat the poisonous berries, which causes the game makers to declare them both winners. So in the book, we get a bit more of the aftermath of the 2 winning. We also get, in the book, a lot more around the interviews and around meeting President Snow as well. So for example, we also get like the wounds being looked after, people being brought back to health, reunites with the stylists. However, in both, Katniss is warned that she's embarrassed the capital, and as such she now needs to be extremely careful. So they both, however, so she now has to convince everyone that it was done for love and not to embarrass the capital, basically. However, they both end the same way, with Katniss and Peter going back to District 12 as joint winners. Now, as I said, the plot is extremely close, like very close. There was a bit more in the book, but as we know, you can't have everything from the book in the film. The majority of deaths stay pretty much the same. The order of deaths stay pretty much the same. I must admit the feelings between Katniss and Peeta seemed a bit more harsh in the book at first. But also they kind of got to know each other. And also they're only sort of 16 in the book, but they seem a little bit older in the film, do Peeta and Katniss. But honestly, the plot, it gets a 7 out of 10 for me. It was almost step for step, really. Now, obviously, this is my own opinion. If you agree or disagree with anything I say, please do leave it below in the comments. Don't forget to click subscribe and like for this video to be alerted when the next one comes out. But until then, remember to always keep it contento.